Okay, I always love to start with some intros. It's a number of us, but I think it's worth it just so folks know who's in the room. So Ariel Leggett, I am the chair for the research committee for ACUHO-I, and Curtis Nash is not here. He's our chair-elect. He just started in the role, so super excited for him. And I'm gonna popcorn it over. Oh, and I'm at Rutgers University, the associate director for residence education. So I have LOCs, DEI, and student leadership. So I'm gonna popcorn over to Tori.
Hi, everyone. First, I just enabled captions if needed. Those are there now. My name is Tori Nagash. I'm the Research Initiatives Manager at ACUHO-I, and I serve as the staff liaison for the Research Committee, as well as the Campus Housing Index Engagement Committee, which is a mouthful. And I'm happy to be here. I guess I should pick someone. I'll pick on Janie.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janie Sacco. I am at the University of Washington, and I currently serve as the Director of Knowledge Enhancement for the ACUHO-I Executive Board, and one of my roles is a liaison with this committee. So happy to be here, and I will popcorn it over to Paul.
Hi everyone, Paul Hubinsky, he, him pronouns. I work at Northwestern University as the Director for Strategic Initiatives and Planning and Residential Services. And I'll send it to Beckett.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Beckett Duncan. I'm a research analyst within the Office of Assessment, Insight, and Research at the University of Colorado Boulder. And so I oversee and conduct research for the Division of Student Life there. And I will send it on over to Aaron.
Hi everyone, my name is Erin. I am the Assistant Director at University Family Housing at the University of Toronto, and I will send it to Mike.
Mike Huseman, professor in special ed, Marshall University. Most of my research interest centers around on-campus housing people with intellectual disabilities, both in dorms, inclusive post-secondary ed programs. So that's what brought me here. I will send it to Natalie.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie Alexis. I'm the Residence Education Coordinator at Florida A&M University Housing. And I will send it to Leah or Leah?
Leah.
Leah, all right.
Yes. My name is Leah Dykeman. I'm the Associate Director of Residence Life at William and Mary, and I use she, her pronouns. I can popcorn it over to Christiana.
Hey everyone, I am Christiana. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Residence Life Coordinator for the University of OU. Wow, I'm so tired. The University of Oklahoma in Arezzo. And I will popcorn it over to Kayla.
Hello, I'm Kayla Amino, she, her. I am the area coordinator for graduate and family housing at the University of Florida. And I believe Sean still needs to go.
Hi, my name is Sean Dolingtie. I'm the CLIP coordinator for care and support, which means like we work with campus living projects here at Northern Arizona University.
Dawn, did you go? I'm probably saying that wrong.
It's okay. I'm Dion Green. I'm the Managing Director for University Student Housing at Texas Tech University.
Okay. Have we missed anyone?
Just me.
Sarah?
Okay, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Oh, my camera's off. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Hart. I'm the Director of the Office of Residence Life at the SUNY University of Tampa. Pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you, everyone. So the first thing, well, I want to say thank you because you could be someplace else right now. So just appreciate your time and attention. We don't ever go over an hour, so 60 minutes of your time, if not less. And we have some interesting information to share from Tori. A survey was sent out asking, folks at ACUHO-I specifically who are interested in research, their thoughts about our research agenda. So Um, Tori, sorry, you can feel free to share your slides.
See, I was just getting my slide deck up there, and I'm pretty sure it's going to share incorrectly because it likes to show the wrong screen first, no matter what I do. There we go. There we go. That's the correct one. Okay. Yes. So as Ariel said, we did a survey for about 2 weeks that was available to get some feedback about our research priorities and sort of a little direction, perhaps, for where we should go in the future. So to give a little background, the current research agenda was established in 2015, so it is about 10 years old now. And it focuses on 3 specific areas, which are public-private partnerships, student outcomes, and student success. This year, starting in January, the committee began evaluating this agenda to see if those priorities still align with what we see as current and emerging issues in the field. And through this process, we discovered that there was sort of a consensus among those who joined the meetings and the conversation that our research priorities should align with the future of the profession focus areas. And so to learn more about that, we created a survey, a very brief survey, to gather feedback, really to see where folks felt which of those 8 priorities of focus areas should be our priorities, and just to get some other qualitative feedback about why they ranked things that way, what they see as the biggest issues or topics facing the field at this time. And so as you can see here, it was about a 2-week time period where we administered it. I pulled a list of from all of our records, so current and past ACUHO-I members, which means not all of the contact information may have been accurate, which is a risk we take, but I wanted the biggest pool possible. And so it was those who indicated having an interest in research and assessment or working in the area of research and assessment. And we had 73 responses, which was about 6.4% response rate. And so the slides that I have, I'm not going to talk about all of them because I think I have like 32 or maybe more, because there's a lot of qualitative feedback. I'm going to try to just jump to what I think maybe are the most interesting initial findings. And I'm going to put the full deck up in the shared folder, and we'll have a link to that in the follow-up email with the meeting recording as well, so that you can look at that more. So we had the main question, which was rank these focus areas, 1 being the best fit or your top choice as a research priority, and 8 being the worst fit or your last choice as a priority. And then follow-up qualitative questions asking why they chose the top 3, why they chose the bottom 3, and then that question I mentioned about what are the most pressing issues or trends within the field at this time. So this shows, I combined the percentages for those top 3 spots to give a total here. So this is the percent of participants who ranked each of these within their top 3. And I have green there as sort of the 3 highest values. So, you know, green means go, I guess, in my mind. Yellow means maybe those would be second place, sort of honorable mention. But the highest percentage fell in enabling workforce sustainability. To my mind, is not a surprise. I thought that would be one of possibly the top 3. And then it was a tie between communicating campus housing's value and shifting the higher education business model. But there was also a pretty high percentage that fell within increasing belonging and championing facility design and maintenance. I broke this down also to show how these were listed by number one priority. So who said this is my top priority or should be the association's top research priority? Number one was communicating campus housing's value, and then workforce sustainability and shifting the higher education business model came in tied for that second place. Increasing belonging and facility design and maintenance were also sort of honorable mentions there in terms of the percentages. Number two priority, there were sort of three here that stood out, although there were a couple more that were close. But workforce sustainability and increasing belonging ranked highest in terms of number two priority, followed by that higher education business model. And then for number three priority, pretty close, almost a tie between workforce sustainability and facility design and maintenance for number three, and then strengthening mental health came in with 15% saying number three priority. I also include here just the overall breakdown of how the responses fell in terms of the rankings. I'm not going to go through all of this right now, just because I think some of the other things are maybe more interesting, but I wanted this here for a deeper dive later, and as we have additional conversations about this. Okay, so I have themes here in terms of the rationale for the top three and the bottom three. But what I found most interesting is the themes for, I see someone in the waiting room. There we go. The themes for what the top or maybe most important issues or trends are. And so I'm going to try to skip ahead to those, because I think maybe our time might be better spent looking at what was identified here. So these are some takeaways in terms of what participants felt the most pressing issues and trends in the field are right now. So staffing and workforce sustainability mentioned a lot, particularly about staff shortages and burnout, concerns regarding declines in graduate student and entry-level applicants, compensation, high cost of living. I feel like alternative staffing models fits here, but perhaps also under different focus areas as well. There was discussion of supervision, and then retention challenges and lack of professional development. And I think that is more lack of funding for professional development rather than opportunity, because you need the funds in most cases to have the opportunity to attend. Mental health and well-being was mentioned a lot in the qualitative comments, but it wasn't ranked as highly as a priority. I think if we look at the percentages, it falls in the top 5, but not necessarily in the top 3. So, but that's one that I found, that disparity I found interesting. As a side note, just that it was brought up a lot as an important issue, but not necessarily ranked as one of the top 3 priorities that we should focus on. So mental health and well-being were discussed in the comments. Rising mental health concerns for both students and staff. Discussion about burnout again, and the emotional labor of working in the field. A need for more proactive strategies versus reactive strategies, and to have an emphasis on creating healthy environments to work in. Again, with rising costs and affordability, both in terms of the cost of attending college or university, as well as housing itself. Discussion of construction expenses, so kind of fitting under that first priority, relating to facilities. This idea that there's a pressure to justify the cost of living on campus, and how do we do that? And the need for an more affordable, flexible options when it comes to housing. Discussion about the idea of the value proposition of campus housing, concerns about perhaps a declining perception of that value of living on campus, that there needs to be more effective communication regarding what those benefits are and why it's important. That really this idea of affirmation and reaffirming the role of housing in student success and retention, and that they're not separate, but they're intertwined. There was some discussion about deferred maintenance and how the infrastructure on many campuses is aging, and how new construction is so expensive. There was a discussion about the demand from new students, from incoming students, for modern, sustainable facilities, but also a discussion about inclusive facilities. And I think that was in the broadest terms possible. So not just in terms of the who can live where, but the facilities are accessible to folks as well. So thinking broad in terms of what inclusive means. And there were a few folks who are not fans of P3s and those housing models, who had some things to say, and that those models should be evaluated. Discussion of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I think this is a reflection of the times we're living in. But there was both comments about how important it is to continue the work, to have inclusive housing options, to focus on belonging, to have support, but how challenging it is. And in some of the other qualitative feedback, there were concerns about ranking the focus area of belonging as in the top 3 or higher, because of the current political environment, and that there have to be decisions made about whether the association should be publicly focusing on that as one of our research priorities at this time. Not saying it shouldn't be done, but just raising the question of this needs to be a conversation, and how would it be done, to sort of thread the needle right now. More about policy and political impacts, just concerns about funding and operations, a lot of uncertainty, and varied institutional responses to national policy changes, and what that looks like can vary so much depending on which state you're in, and even which institution within the state you're in. There was some discussion of student behavior and expectations, that they feel like there's a shift in expectations of Gen Z students in particular, that they've seen increases in conflicts and parental involvement, and declines in the skills that are needed to be effective and successful in that social emotional learning, that there's a demand for amenities that maybe wasn't there before, that they're trying to meet. And then strategic and financial planning concerns or issues. This relates to one of those focus areas, that business model, that there needs to be perhaps a new business model, different or varied funding strategies. But at the same time, there are resource constraints, and there's so much competition for support, and just the importance of making informed decisions. So using data to make informed decisions. And I think that's it. So I will stop sharing if I can find, there we go. I didn't want to talk forever. I just wanted to give a very sort of brief overview, and then I will share these so that you can look more closely. But I feel like this is going to be maybe an ongoing conversation on the committee. And really our role would be to make recommendations for what we feel the new priorities should be. and why. And then that would go ultimately before the board for approval. So that's sort of the long-term process there.
Corey, to that last point of what you said in terms of making recommendations to the board, is that for ACUHO-I's agenda at large or solely for the purposes of research?
So these would be ACUHO-I's research priorities. And
Mhm.
so, that it would tie into our next strategic plan. It would tie into,
Yeah.
any opportunities that we look for in terms of sponsoring research or collaborating with other organizations or entities on research projects. We would consider how they fit with our priorities as well as the future of the profession, focus areas, and ACUHO-I's mission. But yes, it would be a guiding part of ACUHO-I's plan. And the current ones have been here for 10 years. So not to say these would be around for 10 years, but they could potentially be. But I also see the benefit of revisiting them perhaps more frequently than every 10 years, just to make sure they're still relevant. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any initial thoughts based on what was shared? Okay, if you don't. All right, you can feel free to pop it in the chat if you just don't want to unmic or unmute. So that, as Tori mentioned, we'll need to chew that over, mull that over, and come to some conclusions about how we move forward. But just wanted to present the survey data that we had. And we're in some ways, I'd mentioned to prior groups that, this is my first year serving in this role. And so I'm excited about the progress that we're making, that folks are responding to the surveys, that we are getting that feedback so that we can share it back up. So we'll take the small victories where we can. So the next thing I wanted to share with folks is what's in the chat, which we might need to reshare under folder with notes and other documents, research committee. It's a list of things that we did some brainstorming in the last session about webinars. And so we broke off into separate groups, wrote down all our ideas, and then I summarized some of them. And so you'll find in that document that there is those summaries, those talking points for each one, and then a hyperlink for some ranking. So what I'd like this group to do is just read through that document. And if anything isn't clear, perhaps myself or Tori can elaborate on it. I don't know that most of the people that came up with those ideas aren't actually here in this room. But if you need some elaboration, we can. But if you could just take some time to rank, because what we want to do is preferably, have a webinar every month if possible. And we would need some volunteers from this group or the larger research committee group to work on coordinating some of that. So I will stop talking, and if folks could just take some time to read through that document and rank. Thank you. It's in the chat. We'll give it a few more minutes. Looks like some responses are still waiting. We're waiting on a couple responses. Okay, looks like we have most of the responses in. So it really is all over the board. So the volunteers that are working on this with me will have to decide based on what's been how it's been ranked and perhaps even the survey results that we received from Tori, how we move forward with identifying those webinars. So Kayla, thank you. Gladly take the assistance, and Erin. Can you say more about wondering if we could combine one of these with a focus on how to use data to sell the positives of living on campus? Anything in particular you were thinking about?
Well, I just looked at several of them, and I think they were talking about taking data and doing different things with data, and then looking at what we just saw in the survey results, that might be a one to focus on, or if there's one that was heavily geared towards more of how do you take the data that we already have and put into support for how do we make sure people understand the benefits of living on campus, because that was seemed to me was a theme throughout the whole information that was shared, and maybe that would be a focus to combine the two different things. So
Okay.
that's just what struck me when I read through it, and then I was thinking of the presentation too.
Exactly. Thank you. So I also asked if you are aware of any possible presenters. You're not necessarily volunteering anybody to do anything, but at least we'll have an idea of who to do outreach to. That would be helpful. So I believe it's an editable document. So if you could just take a look at that in terms of the different topics, if you have any ideas about who we might reach out to, just feel free to plug that in. Thanks, Tori. And while folks are thinking that through, just moving on to our final point, which Tori, I know you were going to give some updates on the funded research and well, the endorsed. Yeah.
Both, yeah.
Both.
Yeah, so for funded research, as you may or may not know, since there are some new faces here, our 2025 call for funded research grant proposals was open from March through the first week of April. We had 5 submissions. We had 2 rounds of review from volunteers who in round 1 evaluated if on a 1 to 5 scale, a set of criteria on a rubric, and then a second round where recommendations were made whether they should be funded. And then Ariel and Curtis and I met to go over the results of the judging and make some decisions. So looks like we have 3 of the 5 that are going to receive funding. I'm finalizing all of the internal paperwork and things that are needed on my end, and we'll be notifying in June. So just shortly, a couple weeks here, and making that public. So that's exciting. Last year we only had 1 that was funded and 2 that were received, I believe, submissions. So this was an increase, which is awesome. And then we had a funded research grant webinar. When was it now? The end of April, I think. And that researcher also submitted their white paper, which is a requirement of the funding. So we will have a new report coming to the bookstore soon. That is free for ACUHO-I members. And I think it's about $10 or $20 for non-members, and that goes to the foundation. Any income from that, since the foundation funds the research grant program. And then endorsed research, we have 1 application so far this year that was approved, thanks to, again, volunteers from the committee who reviewed that. I'm meeting with that researcher tomorrow to talk about some logistics and things, but potential survey coming your way, depending on whether you're part of the sample I pull for them. And we will also have an endorsed research webinar coming up in June. I believe we're looking at June 17th to schedule, probably around lunchtime. I think I'm just waiting to get the final details from that researcher, but so lots of things in the pipeline happening. And thankful to so many volunteers who reviewed proposals and got emails from me and worked through using Sessionize for the funded research grant program. This was the first year for that. So thank you to all of you for that.
And the June 17th. Oh, go ahead, Janie.
Sorry, I was just asking, are we allowed to share kind of like where the research came from? Like,
for the funded
yeah,
grant?
I was just gonna mention like the diversity we had in terms of research, if that is okay to share, like that we had.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we had it was really nice. Yeah, so I've been doing funded research reviews for like 4 years, and this was the first year I'd seen a significant number of international researchers or interest in international research across different institutions of higher education, which was really cool to see. And so I'm not sure who was ultimately funded, but it was nice to see that reach, which is something I haven't seen historically. So that's really great.
Yes, it was the first year since I've been at ACUHO-I that we had international applicants. So that was exciting.
And I was going to say June 17th. What was the topic?
Let me check.
Or what is the topic?
Yes, it was endorsed research. So I don't have it on the top of my head, but it was dissertation. So I know that. Let me pull it up.
No worries. You can put the topic in the chat
Okay.
whenever you get it. Yeah, the only other thing is I'll look to send some time out in July for us to meet so that we can miss Campus Home Live and not be in the way of that. But probably within the last 2 weeks of July, some time for the committee to meet. So I'll send something so we can get a somewhat of a consensus on that. And then I won't be attending Campus Home Live, but Curtis, our chair-elect, may be there. Clearly, Tori and Janie, right? You're gonna be there. So I just wanted to ask the question, did anybody else in the space plan on being at Campus Home Live? Okay, so Dion, Paul, all right. A couple head nods. So the question is, we were thinking about doing a meetup so we could see each other in the flesh. So I'm tasking Curtis with that, and I guess just look out for that because he might send a poll just to find, some time that works for everyone, whether it's a lunch or after the day ends. So just wanted to put that out there. I think it's always exciting to be able to see people in person. And I see the title, Living in Crisis, Evaluating Secondary Trauma Among Live-in Residential Life Staff. That is real. Okay. And that is it for our time together. If you think of anything in terms of presenters, feel free to pop it in there. We're not going to be looking at that, really soon, but not, we still have to end out some things, for the school year. So, yeah, folks can continue to input presenters into that document, and I will get in touch with Erin and Kayla, and if anybody else decides that they want to assist with webinars, we will take your help. That's it for today, y'all. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.